Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 194 of the TheSixthAxis podcast. As per usual, I am your host, Kris Lipscomb. Joining me this week is a man with mysterious MIDI concerns. It's Kev Adso. Say hello, Kev.
Hi to you.
And also there is a man whose MIDI usage is impeccable. It's Tuffcub. You're right.
Ow!
Ow? What you done?
Oh, it's just a reference to what I had done the weekend.
Oh, yeah, you got tattooed in that.
Oh, was there something you wanted us to know, Tuffcub?
I might have mentioned it quite a bit.
Is that because it's a TSA tattoo and you're like,
I have got the TSA logo now on my...
It must be the first person
Back,
ever to have the TSA logo on their body. No one else has got it tattooed.
Is that? I thought that was a joke.
No, I have actually got it on...
It's part of a broader design, though, isn't it? It's not like you just went, yeah, fuck it, TSA
Just
logo.
on my forehead, please.
No, it's a big geometric design, and as the TSA logo is
Very geometric.
yeah, it was put in.
Yeah,
cool. Is that the first time that Peter Chapman has had something that what he's designed put on somebody's skin?
I don't know.
That's a first. Yeah, probably.
But has he got tattoos? Because he might design his own tattoos,
true.
knowing him.
Maybe somebody else's skin should be the caveat.
Yeah.
Right. Time for Twitter hellos. People saying hello.
Who have we got this week?
Mr. Fodder says hello.
Hello, Mr. Fodder. Have we heard that one before?
Yeah. Maybe not. I'm not sure.
Well, welcome anyway.
Joanna says hello, obviously, because Joanna.
Well, yeah.
Hello, Joanna.
Indie Marathon / Lucy J1 Lucy JY23 says hello.
Hello to you
from Lucy.
Hello, Lucy.
Spread across two tweets there, which was nice. Really liked.
Is that just because of the sheer volume of her Twitter handle?
I think it's just tweeting us because there's like 4 people in the tweet and all of that.
Yeah.
I don't know. She said hello. She said hello, and I think she just wanted to clarify. Much like Justin Bieber, she just didn't want any lack of clarity in her life, so she wanted to make sure.
That was, of course, an off-air joke.
No, I don't care.
Listeners there, fine.
I don't care.
Stuff you, listeners.
Listeners will be able to work it out themselves. It's not like I've named some super obscure artist.
Justin who? No,
yeah.
Don't know.
Time for the news.
News.
Of course, it's extra special news because Tuffcub is a news editor at the TheSixthAxis, so it'll be extra newsy this week.
At least extra long.
Factually correct
special.
For a change.
Our news is generally factually correct, or close to.
Yeah, I got all the facts.
Approximate facts.
I've got some of the facts.
All of some of the facts. They're going to put Pokemon on a phone and that.
Yep, cool. I'm on board.
Pokemon Go. It's going to be on phones. You're going to go and capture Pokemon in the real world. But they're not real Pokemon. I should clarify that. It's just like an AR game.
I got a squirrel.
Yeah.
I got a pigeon.
I think it's Invisimals, basically.
Yeah, it pretty much is Invisimals.
Yeah, but since Invisimals was out, wasn't anything, you know what I'm trying to say, wasn't everything anybody wanted. No one was like, man,
I really wish I could capture pretend things in the real world. That's what I've really been going for.
What I'm saying was, didn't everyone look at Invisimals and go, if only that was Pokemon?
Oh, yeah, that's also true. Yeah,
basically.
I think that was kind of the flaw with Invisibles. People were like, oh, it's alright, but like Pokemon and that.
It's sort of not Pokemon.
Yeah.
And that's a problem for me, so...
Yeah, to be fair, that is also the app that any new gaming technology is instantly like, well, what if Pokemon know?
Is Pokemon even still relevant?
I think that's probably your view, not the general
No,
view.
because every time something new comes up, I do see it on Twitter quite a lot, and it's like, oh, this would be awesome with Pokemon. Like, particularly with, obviously it was a Nintendo thing, but the Amiibos, people are like, well, why isn't this Pokemon? Because they would make infinite money if they made a Pokemon game that had Amiibos in it. There's like 500 Pokemon at this point.
That's probably why they don't do it then.
Yeah. Well, are Pokemon still relevant in this modern age?
I think, they still make games, and the games seem to sell reasonably well, I assume. I assume they wouldn't make them if they didn't. And I think
they sell very well.
And the cartoon's still there.
Is it? Still
yeah,
going?
Basically, they start a new season of the cartoon at, like, roughly the time period that their target audience has aged. Right. So, like, they wait till the audience has aged out and then start again with a new audience.
Yeah.
It's pretty smart.
Original Hut 150 represent.
Yeah. Apparently. I don't think you can be, like, kind of go urban and Pokemon doesn't really work.
Don't know if you just heard what I did, but that sounded like exactly what you've just described.
That is entirely untrue, because only this week there was a picture of Rihanna dressed as the Pokemon trainer, and she's very...
No, it wasn't. Remember, Blair tore your world asunder.
Well, alright, it was...
I don't remember, nor do the listeners. Would you like to elaborate?
So basically, there's a picture of Rihanna where she looks like a Pokemon trainer, and then someone drew a picture of her as a Pokemon trainer. But Tuffcub made the reasonable assumption that it was the other way around. There was a picture of a Pokemon trainer, and then Rihanna dressed as her. Yeah, so that's what it is. It's like Rihanna looked like a Pokemon trainer, which, to be fair, she kind of does in that picture. Like the color scheme she selected, it's like that does look a lot like you're in a children's TV show. And then someone had drawn a picture of her as a Pokemon trainer.
I like, by the way, we've already discussed Rihanna and Justin Bieber. This is going well.
Yeah. This is you can tell this is a Tuffcub podcast.
It's really in your wheelhouse this week. It's all music. There's also going to be a Pokemon Go Plus, which is a Bluetooth thing and lets you throw a Pokeball and other stuff.
That sounds dangerous.
Pokeball. Yeah, not a real Pokeball, like a virtual Pokeball. Yeah, it's weird. Apparently, people like it.
They should make a real-world peripheral that is a Pokeball, and you throw it at the thing that's virtual, but in the real world. And then, if you manage to get it in the right spot, then you win.
Yeah. In sort of...
It only ruins some glass coffee tables.
In sort of like anti-news, there's going to be no multiplayer in Rise of the Tomb Raider.
Great.
That feels like confirming a negative feels like anti-news, you know?
Well, the first one, or the rebooted one, did have it. It wasn't particularly good.
No, I didn't play. I don't play multiplayer. Well,
maybe that's okay. Maybe they're going, well, this isn't very good. We could better spend our time making a better.
That's pretty much what they've
experience.
said. It's like with multiplayer cut from the experience, Crystal Dynamics needs to make the core campaign as entertaining as possible.
Yeah, because Tomb Raider's always been about single player, like story narrative type puzzly goodness.
Yeah.
So like, who wants multiplayer? Like, we'll go and play Call of Duty or whatever, won't we?
Yeah.
Because we love all that.
I mean, I know some people liked the multiplayer in Uncharted, but that also felt a bit unnecessary to me as well.
The best part of the multiplayer in Uncharted was the co-op multiplayer bits, which weren't your traditional multiplayer fare, I thought, personally.
But
I mean, the question is what they're going to do instead, because they're not going to release a game and then not try and sell you extra bits.
I assume they'll do story content.
Puzzle hints. The microtransactions.
They'll just do like DLC that is all that. Like, do you want some tombs in that? We've got some more tombs that you can raid.
Different skins and costumes.
No, they won't do that because that's not like they need like long tail content, and skins and costumes don't provide that. So I think it'll just be like
long tail content. You say?
Yes, so you keep playing for a long time.
Long tail.
Yeah. Plus side is if they do that, when the PlayStation version eventually comes out, we'll have it all in it. I guess.
Have all the stuff.
Yeah. The Ultimate Edition.
Yeah, that will be called. But yeah, I think it'll be a bit like Arkham Knight, which has that got, I don't think that's got multiplayer in it.
Well, it's got challenge rooms.
Yeah, but it's not really the same. It's not like it's not synchronous multiplayer. It's just leaderboards and that. But yeah, that's what they've done, isn't it? They've just gone, here's some story stuff and like new challenge rooms and that. And I imagine Tomb Raider will probably do something quite similar.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the logical way for a single player game to go. Then there was the biggest news of the week, which was yesterday, where Apple were like, oh, you know that Apple TV that we've had for like 4 years? It's a bit shit, so we made a new one and it's got games and that on it, and then it's basically a Wii.
What I think is quite exciting about the idea of Apple TVs as a games console, because it's not really a very good one in terms of like,
no,
it's not
that is accurate.
It's not going to beat the big boys, Microsoft and Sony.
What I did find quite amusing is they were like when they announced the phones and the iPad Pro, they were like, oh, we've got the console class graphics GPUs. That was not a thing that appeared on the Apple TV screen.
Yeah, not so much. But what it does mean is that basically everyone already has a controller, which is really nice for the sort of casual experience that you might expect.
Yeah, I think that was actually good because they showed that in one of the games.
Crossy Road exclusive.
Yeah,
Crossy Road multiplayer.
Yeah, Crossy Road multiplayer, which they showed it working with your phone, and like one guy had the remote, which has got like a touch. It's not
like
touch
Siri remote, isn't it?
A touch panel, that's the word, because it's not actually a screen. It's just like a bit of glass that's touch sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got that, so you can like do swipey stuff with that, or you can do swipey stuff on your phone. I thought that was quite nice.
I think
that's
that's the kind of best thing about it, because like, especially with this generation, nobody wants to pay £200 to have 4 console controllers, which they're basically never going to use.
I guess the only question though is, will it sync with Android phones as well? I would suspect no. Probably and that obviously does make it somewhat,
but, who uses Android?
Somewhat limited. Well,
lots of people.
Yeah, Tuffcub and I had this discussion. Like, although the iPhone is, I think we conclude the iPhone is the single largest selling handset or like brand kind of thing. Like, there's way more Android phones because there's loads of like crappy tiny Android phones that cost like 50 quid.
That's true. Yeah, actually, out of my group of friends, probably I would say 60% are on Android.
Yeah, but the difference is, when lots of people who are on Android, most of them don't have like the same phone.
Yeah,
like they'll have lots of different Android phones. Yeah. Whereas if you're an iOS, you're like, oh, I've got one of like 4 phones. Mm-hmm. I've got iPhone 5S, or I've got iPhone 6 or 6 Plus or a normal 5. That's about it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Let's not forget the 5C, of course.
Like,
the humble 5C.
Not a lot of people own a 5C though.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a 5C.
Really?
Yep.
I don't think I know anyone else who does.
But they didn't really push the games aspect of it that much, did they? There was Guitar Hero for it, but
well, no, it wasn't Guitar Hero.
Beats Hero
it was Beats something. It wasn't Guitar Hero. It was made by Harmonix, but it was more like that's why
using
I called
Guitar
it
Hero mechanics for non-guitar things.
But that's why I called it a Wii, because that was a lot of like swinging the remote around to hit stuff.
Yeah, but I do think that, like I say, it can't compete with the AAA sort of console-y.
No, it can't. But they're not trying.
That's a decent market to try and go for instead. It's like the casual stuff. Like, I think they, Apple being Apple, they're like, right, so the next big revolution in TV that we're going to invent is apps, which kind of is interesting as well. I mean, actually, I don't know anybody who has an Apple TV, so that might be a barrier.
We have one at work, but I like that they're like, we invented this. You're like, the way Tim Cook was talking, I was like, have you not used a smart TV, Tim Cook? This is a very weird thing you're saying here.
But I mean, Apple do know app stores. Yeah. So, in fact, someone at work was like, I was going to sell my Apple TV to get like an Amazon Fire one or something else because it doesn't have apps, but now it does. So.
No, certainly. But my point being more like the way he was talking about it.
It was a thing that we've invented.
But it was also like not even that that there weren't apps on TV. It was like TVs were just TVs. They didn't do anything else previously.
Remember when we all just had black and white TVs yesterday?
That's what it felt like. It was really weird.
He said something like that. We'd watch TV and it hasn't progressed for like 40 years or something. It's like, what? Really?
It didn't progress for like 40 years. There was like a 40-year block where it didn't really progress. And then like 10 years ago, it progressed loads.
Yeah. Quite a lot.
And we forgot to keep up.
We weren't paying attention. And they were like, people have got TiVos and stuff now. We don't know what that is. Jesus Christ. Calm down, people.
I do struggle to see where Apple TV fits in people's homes. I guess like for people who aren't people who will be listening to this podcast, like non-gaming people without a console who maybe just have Freeview. I don't know.
But
like
these
mums and dads and stuff. But then they want to watch the BBC. So what?
Yeah.
You can get. I've got an Amazon Fire Stick that cost me 20 quid.
Yeah.
And that does games.
Yeah. The thing that amazed me though was I was watching it. And I was like, but I'm pretty sure. I actually turned to my boss and said, "Do you remember a year ago we watched the Android TV announcement?" And I'm sure this promo video was a shot-for-shot remake of that announcement video. Because I was like, this is very similar to exactly what Google announced a year ago. Like, exactly the same.
Except that's sort of Apple's MO, isn't
with
it?
Literally the only difference being Google were like, oh, what you do is you use your phone to interact with the telly. And they were like, it's a remote thing and that. Yeah, it's slightly different.
Whilst we're on the Apple conference, did anyone else think Apple Pencil sounds like a story they would have run as an April Fool's
it does,
last
right?
year?
Did you see the quote from Steve Jobs in like 2010 or something? Like, who wants a stylus?
Yeah.
Basically just mocking styluses, and Apple like, this is a pencil, not a stylus.
I mean, to be fair, it actually looks pretty good, but like just Apple Pencil, just the whole concept of it.
I'm really not in favour of the thing where they're like, and then you have to charge it. I was like,
You have to charge your pencil.
But it is, to be fair, you can charge it in the bottom of your iPad, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it just depends how. But if that takes more than like 5 minutes, so many are going to get snapped.
Yeah,
because it looked super precarious. The way then you put it in the lightning connector on the iPad Pro, and then you lean on it by mistake and break it.
Yeah,
that's 100% what it looked like to me. I was like, this seems like a bad thing. Why would you do that? But yeah. It's got like sensors and that in it, I guess.
What I'm interested to see is, are you allowed to lean on your iPad with your hand whilst writing? Because I've got a stylus for my iPad, just a generic like capacitive stylus, but you have to hover above it because obviously it thinks your hand and your stylus are all trying to input at the same time.
Yeah, I guess it would be different because with a normal stylus, it just thinks it's a finger.
Yeah,
whereas with this, it knows it's a stylus.
Yeah.
So that's the difference.
Interesting. What else is in the news this week?
That's it. There's no more news.
End of news.
Nothing else happened. Kev, you wanted to talk about Til Morning Light, which you were going to talk about last week, and is definitely not a game that is Until Dawn. But
yes, despite having a very similar sounding premise
and name.
Yeah.
They're like, this isn't Until Dawn, this is a game with a slightly different name, yes.
Until Morning
Light. Until Morning Light.
In fact, forget Until, it's just Till.
Yeah.
Til Morning Light. Very different now, isn't it?
You definitely can't sue us now, please don't sue us.
Mm-hmm. I mean, actually, it is completely different. Like, it couldn't really be a more different game. It's like a mobile puzzler, albeit a very high production values one. It's got a full voice cast, and it's made by Amazon Games.
Okay.
I didn't really know they'd had their own game studio, or at least I can't think of any famous releases from Amazon Games.
Yeah, they set one up about a year ago, and there was, I can't remember who it was. I think it might be Clint Hocking. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was him. He went to go and work for them, and then he left about 3 or 4 weeks ago. In fact, all their big names left about 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Oh dear. Possibly the last of Amazon Games' releases. It's actually in a bundle for $4.49, I believe it was, for 2 of Amazon Games' latest releases. There was that one, and the name of the other one I can't remember because I had to delete it because I don't have a very big phone, but I'll get it once I've finished this one. So, Til Morning Light is a game where you play the role of Erica, who is sort of goaded into going into this spooky house by her high school bullies / friends, I don't know, and then they lock her in, and she's like, "All right, cool, now I'm locked in." And then a spooky voice is like, "This is my house," blah, and then you have to solve puzzles.
Is that genuinely like that?
That's the script. That is the actual script.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm glad you cleared that up.
Yeah. And so the core of the game consists of not being able to get into rooms because they're locked, and then finding the keys for those rooms, because every room has a symbol and every key has a sort of matching thematic shape. So there'll be like a music room and then a key which is sort of in the shape of like a quaver, not the crisp. I should hesitate to add the musical note. Or the science room with its sort of like molecular diagrams kind of shaped key.
The science room?
Yes, science room. That's where the science happens.
Oh, it's good that it lives up to its name.
So it's all in this manor. It's a very big manor. It's actually a very big game. I've been playing it for probably, 2 hours or so. And for a mobile game, you'd expect to be a fair chunk of the way through. But I'm still on the first floor of, I think, 3 floors of this manor. I've defeated the first boss. So there's combat in the game as well as puzzles, and the combat happens in the form of sort of gesture-based, time rhythm almost based stuff. But it feels a bit kind of random. Like there's, I think, 4 interactions I've seen so far. Like tap when the circles shrink to the right size, swipe in the direction of the arrow when it kind of meets the ghost version of its arrow. Tap the circle when it moves past a circle of the right shape, and just like there doesn't seem to be. It's not like one bad guy type has one kind of thing, or doing the action even doesn't trigger any different animation from your character. So it's just like seems kind of arbitrary, which is weird because it's not unfun. It's actually quite a satisfying experience to get the notes right and stuff. But
it's always a part of a review you want, not unfun.
It just seems like, you know, if the different gestures meant that Erica did different things to the creatures you're fighting, then that would be something at least. But yeah, it's not. It seems to just pick them at random. I think like some of them are harder gestures, and maybe so therefore like the tougher enemies. But
yeah, but even so, that feels like it's a bit of a disconnect between your input and what's happening on the screen, which is never good.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like I could be doing any of these things, and she'd still just sort of hit it. So that said, there are these creatures slithering around, and you can see them sort of in the manor, and then like they approach you, and she's like, "These things are everywhere," or just no, and yeah, whatever. The fights ensue. Actually, the fights are really easy because they don't actually attack you unless you get one of these notes wrong. So, and they're not very hard. So most of the time, you can get a perfect fight without any damage dealt. So yeah, it's not particularly challenging combat, but I feel like the combat is really kind of something. Maybe somebody said like, "Shouldn't we have some fighting in this?" And they're going, "Oh, okay," because the game is all about solving the puzzles and finding the little pieces and unlocking the different rooms, and that's kind of where the heart is. And then also about sort of, it's quite a story-driven thing. It's like I say, it's fully voice acted, and you start to learn about the mysteries of the house that you're in, and you meet some ghost characters. And sort of find out about the family that used to live here and through little journal entries and stuff.
Is one of the mysteries why the house has a science room? Because most of them don't.
It's a very large house.
Mine doesn't.
I think at the point where you've got, 20 rooms per floor on your house, you just need to start thinking of stuff to put in your rooms.
Okay, right.
Yeah, you don't want just a big empty house.
No, exactly.
Right.
Like you got
this is the frog room.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah,
and obviously you want to make sure your rooms are clearly themed as well.
Yeah, that's true. Well, otherwise, how would you design the keys for all of the rooms that you need to lock every time you leave the house?
You're like, well, look, I've got a lot of science stuff. It needs to go somewhere. What if I was just to pare it down to a single room? Done.
The room of towels.
Exactly. Oh, it'd be so fluffy.
Towel room. Yeah, I haven't come across towel room actually. Maybe that's in one of the second floor or something.
That's why I know.
You'd hope like there's got to be like a closet that's got that kind of stuff in. If you got a house full of esoteric rooms, there needs to be one that's like, oh, here's the towels and like where we keep spare loo roll and stuff. You got to have that somewhere.
Do you know who's got a really good house?
Who? Robbie
Williams. He's got a swimming pool on the first floor, so you can go up to the first floor and swim around and look up from the ground floor. People see people swimming.
That's cool. Oh, there's a mental development coming in London. I don't know what we're talking about this.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, the bridge
the
pool.
Bridge swimming pool. That was nuts.
Yeah, it's basically like that, but he's in his mansion.
That's pretty cool.
So anyway, back to the game.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's a very specific.
Let's talk about weird rooms.
Swimming pool podcast.
Well, I mean, that is essentially what I'm doing by talking about this game. A lot of weird rooms. I would recommend getting it because you get two big, fairly high production value Amazon games, and it's like I say, it's quite a good game. It just feels like some of the decisions were made in haste or like maybe not properly thought through. But you get $4.49 for an Amazon game bundle at the moment, which is quite good value. But obviously, if you rather spend your $4.49 on something else, then I'm just a voice in your ear. I can but advise. My advice is...
And this is on iOS, not Android, I presume.
Well, I don't know.
I presume it's on both.
Yeah.
You're playing on
I've been playing it on iOS. The graphic style is kind of cartoony, sort of halfway between cartoony and realistic. So it's all sort of dark and eerie and mysterious and, haunted manner. But the characters are quite sort of, not Pixar-y, but like of that ilk. Big eyes and exaggerated features, that sort of thing. Character design is good actually. Like the first boss that I came across was quite a surprise to me when he turned around. I won't say more in case you want to play it. But yeah, it's good. Like if you like puzzle games, and it's a good like one for on the bus or something like that.
All right. That's what I like with mobile games though. You want them to be kind of playable on the bus, in my opinion. It always
exactly.
You
can just go like, well, I got 5 minutes. I could probably get one more room open.
That's why I hate games that are like, oh, we're going to use tilt controls. Like, yeah, because that's not going to work in 90% of the situations I play. I play on the bus. Tilt controls are fucked because you're bouncing about all over the place.
Yeah. Or like ones that require you to use the gyroscope, so you're looking around or something.
Yeah, you're like, no,
don't mind me.
Yeah,
sorry, just can I get? Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, that's just terrible. I hate that.
So yeah, very much not the game Until Dawn, but
what's the best
very
room?
Similar name.
What's the best room so far?
I know we've spoken about it at length, but I really did enjoy the science room.
All right, that's good. Well, that has stuck in my mind as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of rooms, so I already said the science room because it was one of the more memorable ones. Kitchen was all right.
If you do encounter the room of towels, let us know.
Oh, I will. I'll keep you updated.
Yeah. Right, Tuffcub, you've been going back in time a little bit.
I have.
And you wanted to talk about the PlayStation 3 game, Prince of Persia, which is like the reboot one, right?
What?
Yeah, but basically because I've just been trying to play all my backlog of games.
But that's a pretty good game, actually, Prince of Persia, if I remember.
Yeah, it's actually. I did start to play it when I originally bought it, God knows how many years ago. But yeah, going back to PlayStation 3 is a slightly weird experience.
Is this the first time you've played the PlayStation 3 since the PlayStation 4?
No, I've been playing quite a few games on it, but basically I am just going through, because I'm going to get rid of my PlayStation 3, I think. I'm going to give it to my nephew, so I'm just going through all my PS Plus games, and all my games, and just trying to finish them and get them done, and then go, right, there you go, you can have the whole lot. But yeah, it's a bit weird going back. The controls on the PlayStation 3, you get used to them after a while, but they are vastly different to the PlayStation 4. It's very twitchy and quite hard to go back to that sort of control scheme where everything's very, very precise and twitchy. But yeah, I'm enjoying the game. I'm playing it. As I said, it's the PS3 version, which is, I think it came out when does it come out? Just looking at the box.
I can't remember.
Ages ago.
It was a while ago.
Looking for a copyright on the box. 2008.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the one which features Nathan Drake as Princess Persia.
Yeah, and it's got with like the magic lady, right?
Yes, the magic lady who basically you can't die.
Yeah.
If you fall off a cliff or anything happens, she rewinds time.
Yeah.
And catches you. But it's more of a rhythm action game than anything else.
Yeah, that's what I remember about the combat. Actually, the combat's very timing heavy, isn't it?
Yeah, and so is the platforming, because you have to. There's there'll be a sequence of rings and climbs. And whatever,
I remember now.
And you have to press X and then square and then circle and then circle, and unless you get it perfectly timed, then you're going to fail. So it's kind of a rhythm action game. But yeah, I'm enjoying the story. Basically, bad guy destroys the land they're in, and you have to go and heal it by fighting more bad guys and then pressing triangle quite a lot.
It's like a hub open world, right? So you get to pick what you do next.
Yeah, it's all open world. To be honest, a lot of it looks quite similar.
Okay.
And
that does make the idea of having like this open world hub a little bit pointless.
Yeah, it's
which of these identical environments would you wish to tackle next?
But as you go through, you unlock new abilities, so you can start flying around through magic circles, and there's when you start flying, you get to control where the character is on the screen, so you have to dodge low bridges or swing around things and bits and pieces. That's quite fun. The combat, there isn't actually that much combat in it. You can, if there's a bad guy about to appear on screen, if you're quick, you can get in there and smack him once, and that's it. He's done. And it's only the bosses which prove to be quite.
And the bosses, they require you to team up with your magic lady, don't they?
Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes you can only attack the bosses with your sword, and sometimes you can only use magic. But yeah, it's all right. It's kind of fun. I'm enjoying it, going back to it, but it does make you realise just how far we've moved on since 2008 in terms of gameplay, and yeah, I mean in terms of gameplay, quite heavily. Graphics, they hold up quite well.
Okay.
And the voice acting is typically Northern Orcs being chippy and wisecracking all the time.
See, because I remember that I kind of liked the platforming elements of it, though.
Yeah,
Like I would feel those actually probably hold up reasonably well.
Yeah, they're certainly the most interesting part of the game now. As I said, the combat's pretty.
Yeah, but the combat was kind of dire at the time. It wasn't particularly interesting.
It's interesting to go back. Yeah.
Also, has it got like a slightly cel shaded art style or something like that?
Yeah, it's
yeah. Because I think because that's the reason it probably holds up quite well graphically. Is they're not going for realism, because I always. If you pick a realistic art style, it's never going to hold up well in like a few years.
Yeah,
look at Final Fantasy VIII.
Yeah,
yeah. It's kind of like a sort of almost comic book effect.
Yeah,
they've done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it, but it does make you go, wow, we used to play this stuff. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, it really interests me because I know you aren't a huge fan of like retro games always, but I think there's a period when you go back to the kind of 2D, 16-bit, 8-bit era. There's a lot of games from there that still really do hold up, and it kind of feels like that fell away a bit when we moved to. I do think it's the move to 3D because it becomes so much more complex that it makes it harder for the game to hold up in the future.
Yeah, camera as well. That's a weird thing on this game. It swings around like nobody's business.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I quite agree. I mean, you go back to older 2D games, and I hate pixel games, but
yeah,
I grew up with Ghosts and Goblins and that kind of crap. So that kind of stuff, it holds up. But Prince of Persia is a 3D game, and we have 3D games now, and it does look a bit rubbish. But
yeah.
Still, I'm enjoying it, and it's part of a very, very, very big pile of games I have to get through and finish, including Zumba.
Wow.
Oh god, I forgot you had Zumba.
You're going to go for that?
Do you know what? I might give it a go.
I do remember it's because when you were having like really bad back problems, and Zumba fixed it for a little bit.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, I might fire up Zumba again, as I'm a fat bastard at the moment.
Zumba it away, go for it.
It is the most ridiculously hard workout I have ever done.
But I know someone else who goes to Zumba classes, and she says it is just ridiculously hard.
Yeah, even you just watching the training video on Zumba, it's like, what? Slow down, woman.
She says what makes her quite depressed is she's like 22, 23, something like that, and she's going, and it's all middle-aged ladies, and they're all doing it fine, and she's going, well, fucking hell, this is really hard.
Yeah, well, I've got that. I've got Dishonored to finish off. Dead Space 3, Batman Arkham City. Christ.
Arkham City's alright though, actually.
See, I got bored of that. And
Arkham City was great.
No, but you're not a huge fan of like open worldy games, are you?
I've got Doom 3 as well, and the one I'm most looking forward to, Lost the video game.
Oh Christ, that's gonna be bad.
I think I played that. I'd totally forgotten about that's existence.
I got it with my because I had to buy a second PS3 at some point, and it came with it.
I can only imagine that just being fucking terrible.
I did look up on a couple of sites to see if I could find a guide for it, and it's so bad no one's even written a guide.
Oh, that's amazing. That is properly terrible.
Yeah, so wow. That's my I won't be playing Mad Max or the new Batman or anything else. I'm just going to be playing shit old PS3 games for a while.
Well, we'll come back to you in a minute and talk about some other stuff that you've been doing recently. But I want to tell you about the comic books I've been reading recently. I know this isn't your favourite part of the podcast, TuffCub, which
is they involve dinosaurs which turn into robots?
I don't have any dinosaur robot ones at the minute, sadly. I know that
it's good. We haven't had any podcast segments for ages.
Podcast segments?
No, I didn't mean that, did I?
Did you mean comic segments?
Yeah, I did. That's what I meant.
That's all right then. So I have been. I got a little bit behind on comics recently, and so I've been catching up on stuff. And the main stuff I've been reading actually is a little bit of Secret Wars, which I talked about a while ago. It remains really good, so I don't want to talk about it too much. But I've been reading the stuff that is, I believe, called the New DCU, But but U is not like U as in just the letter U. It's DCYOU. And so it's kind of the new reboot to DC stuff that's come out of Thingamabob, Convergence, sort of. And so, as I understand it, and I can't guarantee I'm exactly right, but I think what it is basically stories are much more self-contained now.
It's not a choose your own adventure set in the DC universe.
It's not that at all. But it's like the version of... So, if... yeah, it's not really massive. It's not a spoiler at this point because it was a little while ago now. At the end of Endgame... But at the end of Batman Endgame, Batman basically dies in a cave-in. And in DCU, he's replaced by a new Batman that is Jim Gordon in like a big, awesome mech batsuit. And in Detective Comics and in Batman... That's the version of Batman it is. But in Justice League, it's Batman as it's still Bruce Wayne as Batman. Why are you laughing?
We really should have put videos on. You could just see my face going, "What?"
Yeah, it's true. No, trust me, it is quite. So their idea is it makes it less. They're trying to make it less confusing by
just have one Batman then.
Yeah, well, I think their idea is basically it did get confusing before because if you're telling us that everything is in one continuity and you've got Batman doing like 8 different things at once, that's slightly inexplicable. Whereas if you're hearing like, no, don't worry, like each of these their own little separate thing, that kind of makes it a lot simpler to understand. And so I want to say mostly about the Batman books actually.
I'm surprised.
Well, but they're the ones that actually I think have been really good. Because they are in line with this thing, bringing in a new version of Batman played by not played by, but that is like Jim Gordon in the suit. That makes it much more interesting, and also the fact that it's not just Jim Gordon taking up the mantle of standard Batman. It's like him in a big mech suit, and he's got a whole support team, and he's working like for the police with the backing of a corporation and things. It just, to me, that's a much more interesting line to take, that you're actually exploring what if Batman was like what if
a robot.
Well, yeah, but also the idea of like
does he turn into a dinosaur?
Sadly, he does not turn into a dinosaur. But the idea is like Batman, kind of the idea at the end of The Dark Knight Rises, with Batman as a concept rather than Batman as an individual.
Right. Okay.
And that's quite nice. But the stories they're telling are still feel like classic Batman stories and feel very similar to some of the stories they've been telling recently, but because it's new characters inhabiting it and because it's they've got connections to what had gone before are still in there, and kind of there's still a role for Alfred and people like that, but it's nice that it freshens things up a bit. I mean, obviously, the problem with comic books is you don't know how long this change is going to last. Like, at some point, it will probably be back to Bruce Wayne being Batman. That's kind of what it always feels like with these things, is at some point it's going to be like, yeah, Bruce is back now, he wasn't really dead or whatever, so it's fine. And that, to me, it was the same thing that happened with Spider-Man a couple of years ago, where Peter Parker, like, effectively died, and Dr. Octopus became Spider-Man, and then it was like in the first issue of Dr. Octopus being Spider-Man, they're like, don't worry, Peter Parker's not really super dead. He's like, still exists as a ghost, basically, in the first fucking issue. And that's just showing that you've got no commitment to this new idea. Like, I don't mind if 10 issues in, you start dropping hints that maybe this change isn't as permanent as everyone had believed. But you can't do it in the first issue. You can't do it straight out the bat, going, yeah, it's not going to be Dr. Octopus forever. Peter Parker will be back. Don't worry, because that just makes it feel like change for change's sake. Whereas the stuff that has been, so far at least, the stuff that's been established in Batman makes it clear. They've actually made it very explicitly clear that, at least in this particular storyline, like, Bruce Wayne is not going to be returning to Batman anytime soon. It's not going to be a quick fix. So If they follow through on that, that will be quite nice. And I'd like a year or two of this Jim Gordon as Batman idea, and also the fact that you can have like classic Batman in Justice League still means that it's not going to necessarily, people shouldn't be as pissed. I kind of feel like people shouldn't be as aggrieved that it's a different guy being Batman.
So I'm not following this. So Batman is still in Justice League.
So basically, the idea is that there is not one big continuity anymore. Like, rather than there being one big continuity, there are now just stories, essentially.
Right. Okay.
And
but not happening at the same time.
Yeah, so that they can be connected, but they don't have to be type thing.
Okay.
It's essentially what they're saying now. Because like the version of Superman in like Action Comics and Superman is different to the version of Superman that's in Justice League. And to me, that kind of just makes it a lot easier to follow as well, because stuff that's happening...
Really?
It does, in the sense that like stuff that's happening over in this book over here that I'm not reading because it's a big team up book isn't affecting what's happening over here, and I don't need to worry about like why it's not affecting it.
Okay.
If you see what I mean, like by saying explicitly that these are separate things, rather than, because the problem before was it was really like, are these separate things? Because particularly after the New 52, which was their last reboot, but after that, there's a lot of stuff with Batman. They're like, we compressed all of Batman's history into 5 years. They're like, well, he's on his 4th Robin in 5 years. That seems not good. That's a really high fatality rate or turnover or whatever.
You would not want that job.
Yeah, that's pretty fucking dreadful.
Like Spinal Tap drummer levels of fatality.
Yeah, but also what I didn't understand is like, he's on, like, he became Batman 5 years ago or 10 years ago or something. But also Dick Grayson was Nightwing. And he doesn't have Dick Grayson as Robin right at the beginning either. So I was just like, these numbers don't add up. These numbers unless Dick Grayson became Robin at like 15 and then spent a couple of years, like spent till he was 17, 18 as Robin, was like, all right, I'm off now to be Nightwing, fuck you. It's like, that was a weird thing. And now by just kind of going, it's not a big continuity, here are just some stories about these characters, which I think is smart because it probably does appeal to the casual fan a lot more. To just be like, here, you like these characters. They're in movies and that. Like, come and read the comics they're in, please. We'd like if you did that, please. We're losing lots of money. Oh, God, we're losing so much money. Please come and read our books, please.
Mm.
I think it's an attempt to try and draw more casual fans in. There was actually a brilliant idea that the guys in my local comic book store came up with this a while ago, that really what comics should do is they should say all storylines are a year long, and you don't have volume numbers, and like the stories are not interconnected. At the end of that year, you publish the year's worth as like a big collection if you want it, and then a new thing starts, and then people can go and get the things they want. And that would make it so much easier for new people coming in, because you don't have to worry about the fact that Spider-Man was established in 1960 something, you know? Like, you don't have to worry about the fact that Superman has history that goes back to the 1930s. Like, it's taking that away. Like, some people will be annoyed about that, but you're not really losing that history because they're integrating it into the current version of the character. They're just not making, like, they're just making it very clear that you don't need to know all that stuff. Like, people know who Superman is, basically. This is what everyone gets annoyed about the films, right? You don't need to tell Superman's origin. You don't need to tell Spider-Man's origin. Like people are not going to be, people who are not, who are kind of casual fans of those characters aren't going to know all the details, but they also don't care about all the details. Mm-hmm. They're just like, yeah, Spider-Man's bit by radioactive spider. Like, it's Pete Parker, bit by a spider. He's Spider-Man now. He's like a spider and that. Done. Superman came from Krypton, was a baby, now he's grown up, fights crime, done. Like, do people need to fucking...
Well, saying that, I did say last time we were talking about Man of Steel that I could have watched an entire film running up to when he puts the cape on.
Yes, but the thing there is, I would be fine if that was the film. Man of Steel,
Smallville, isn't it?
Yeah, that's Smallville. And
but with super cool, manly
Henry Cavill
instead of.
Yeah, you know. But the thing with Superman is it's like,
especially with that beard.
But the problem with Man of Steel,
am I right?
Shut up, Kev.
But the problem with Man of Steel is that, like,
I'm serious.
Here's all this stuff of like, problem with Man of Steel is like, here's all this stuff of him building up to the cape and all this stuff after he's Superman as well, and there's too much in that film.
Yeah.
Like, just pick a thing that you want to do. I don't mind if you want to have one that is just the origin story, that's fine. And that also kind of works for Superman. It wouldn't really work for Spider-Man. It would be a bit shit. But there was like a whole film of waiting for him to get bit by a spider. Not that interesting, to be honest. But I mean, do we fucking need to see Bruce Wayne's parents get shot? Do we need to again and again? Everyone knows that his parents were shot. I'm interested to
see how that gets handled in the new Batman Superman film.
Because have you seen that supercut of just Bruce Wayne's parents getting shot that goes around?
No.
It's every version of his parents getting shot, and you're like, wow, he didn't need to do this, guys. It's cool. There's like 7 different animated versions of his parents getting shot. I'm just going, oh, this was not necessary, was it? Just everyone is fine, and no one is watching a Batman movie and going, I wonder how he became Batman. No one has got into that movie blind to what has come before. I'd be amazed if there are people who are going in there being, who's this Batman? I really need to know what's going on with his character. No? That's a personal frustration. We should really move on.
You feel better now.
Yeah. But DC stuff is good at the minute. Like, I'm actually enjoying stuff telling about Batman. I'm enjoying, they're on to the big arc in Justice League at the minute is Darkseid War, or Darkseid, I don't even know how you pronounce his name.
I've always said side.
Yeah, but it's like Dark S-E-I-D.
In German, the rule is if it ends in an I, then it sounds like I. If it ends in an E, then it sounds like E.
It doesn't end in an E, it ends in a D.
No, I mean the EI combo.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. That can make sense. Yeah, I would always say Darkseid, but yeah. But
also,
that's
Dark
But
Side.
that's interesting as well, and that's kind of it's nice that in that. What's really nice actually is they're telling a big sprawling story that feels like it could quite easily be an event book, but they're telling it in just one book, so you're getting lots of different things happening, and it makes the Justice League feel more like an ensemble cast. Because quite often in Justice League, they're like, we're going to have this big fight now, and they have the
Justice
big fight.
League comics that you're talking about.
Yeah, the main Justice League one. Yeah,
one that I'm about
one
to
that's
read.
just called Justice League.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you anything about that, but that's just like there's a few different concurrent plot threads, but they're all related to the main plot.
Yeah. I mean, I only buy Flash and Justice League, so I may get a fairly different viewpoint of all of this stuff anyway.
Yeah,
it's all like Batman centric.
But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. It is really good, and it's a lot of fun. Another book I would like to quickly recommend, very, very quickly. It's called Giant Days. It's not superhero focused at all. It's about 3 girls going to university in their first year of university. It was meant to be a 6-issue series, but I guess it did well enough because up until book 6, it was like book 1 of 6, book 2 of 6, and it got to book 6, and it's just book 6, and there's more coming. So I guess the first 5 sold well enough that it's carrying on. If anyone would like to know a little bit about it, it's actually a version of the characters from webcomic called Scary Go Round. It's a British writer, and it's British teenagers at just some ambiguous northern university, I think, possibly. I'm not sure where the university is. But it's a lot of fun, and it's just it feels very relatable. It's kind of nice to see them having general worries about like them using social media and then worrying about stuff on the internet, etc. It just makes it feel very down to earth, and it's a nice, refreshing book, and it's very well written and very, very, very funny, and like just completely tears apart shit like lad culture and that kind of thing, which is just great. It's a lot of fun. Mr. Tuffcub, would you like to tell us about Sinister 2? Because you said it was shit.
Yeah, I had the misfortune of going to watch Sinister 2 because I was in Plymouth and I had a couple of hours to kill, sadly. And it was either this or what's the channel for sitcom in the school? Bad Education?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was either that or Bad Education, and I chose Sinister 2. I've not seen Sinister 1.
Good start.
I thought, maybe I don't need to. It turns out I didn't really. So the plot of Sinister 2 is there is a woman who is on the run with her 2 children, and her abusive husband is basically trying to get custody of the children back.
Okay.
Oh, and there's the odd scare.
All right.
99% of the film concerns this woman and her husband, basically. Then there's a ex-police sheriff who I believe was in the first film, who as basically he's away. He's not even near this woman for the first half of the film, and he is investigating the mysterious sort of goth figure who appeared in the first film. I think it's called the Babook or something like that. The Book.
Babadook.
It's not the Babadook. It's close to that. Or the Boog or something like that.
The Borg.
That would have been a better film.
Oh yeah, I'd watch that horror film. It's just, and you get like half an hour in, and then just the Borg show up as the villains. You're like, yeah, on board.
So, woman rents or borrows a house off one of her friends, which surprisingly is haunted, and features a selection of small, creepy children. And whilst her children, she thinks her children are sleeping at night, they are watching films of people being murdered in various completely non-scary ways. And that's about it. Basically, the child, one of the child's like the good child, and one of them's a bit evil.
Okay.
And obviously, the evil one in the end tries to kill his own family because that's what he's been watching in movies. It's
what a dick.
Yeah, it's a bit. Oh, films are bad influence and video games, and don't let your children watch them type preachy shit. And that's it. It's a 15, and I did not jump once. I wasn't scared once. It's not sinister at all. It is just dull. I mean, completely. You can spot things coming from a mile off. Just at the start of the film, there is a shot of one of the children lying in bed, and the camera tilts. So it's all widescreen, so his head's on the left of the screen, and then you can see the camera slowly moving up. So there's a big space above the child, and you're thinking, "Ooh, I wonder what's going to happen next." And then, bang! The ghostly figure appears just beside the child. It's like your camera told me what was going to happen.
That's really bad. That's just lazy editing.
I mean, it wasn't scary. You could just say, "Okay, well, I know what's going to happen now."
Yeah.
And the actual scary babook thing, or whatever it is, it's basically a goth.
Oh.
It's a bloke with long black hair and a white face, and he pops up in the background now and again.
Yeah.
And that's it.
It's not like oh fuck. What's it called? The film with there's like loads of teenagers and death, and they all die in really odd ways.
Final Destination.
Final Destination. Yeah, it's not like Final Destination, right? Where it's meant to be a bit stupid and amusing.
No, it's
okay.
It's very,
it's taking
very
itself quite seriously.
But
yeah.
Nothing really scary happens. Even though these children have to watch these 4 films of. There's like the first film is a family being burned on crosses. The second is they're being eaten by alligators. I can't even remember what the last 2 were. But it's you watching goes, well, it's not scaring me, so I don't think it'll probably scare this kid. He's like 12, 13, not that not that young. But
that's just disappointing.
And and then it just finishes. But it is mostly about this woman and her court case. And there's a nice drunken sex scene in the middle of it, just for, because tits.
Why not, eh?
Well, you gotta have tits.
And yeah, it's. I mean, even if I'd seen the first one, it still wouldn't have helped. I don't think it's just dull. Don't go and see it, whatever you do.
All right,
it's
I shan't.
Really bad.
Yeah, probably won't.
Listen to your advice. I trust you.
Mm.
Right, with that said, it's probably question time, I expect.
Question time.
In the questions this week, I'm going to get to that one last. Don't have a huge amount this week. Liam Dodd would like to know, is writing about how your game was a commercial flop the new way to garner sales? You do see this quite a lot from indie devs now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I read an article yesterday about how their game was amazing, but nobody bought it because no one really wanted to play it.
What game? Because I'm not sure exactly what he's referring to because there were a number of things along these lines.
This was a article on Gama Sutra about
That's the one, yeah.
an octopus game that's like gravity bending.
Okay, that's quite a. To be fair, it's a good way to advertise your game.
The devs, they said, okay, well, we paid some people to do our PR for us.
Yeah.
But we didn't bother sending out review copies. We didn't, do anything else. We didn't do interviews.
I remember this because this was on NeoGAF.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly.
I can't remember what game it was, but yeah, I did see this on NeoGAF.
But basically, they blamed everyone apart from themselves for their game and their studio failing. Even though they didn't, they did nothing to try and contact people. I think they said they paid for an advert on IGN or somewhere big for a bit, and that's
but
what they did.
They didn't just.
That's quite a different story from the one that I'm.
They didn't just do but they didn't just do the bog standard here is review code.
No, and
so these guys that I was reading about said basically we did everything right. Like we wouldn't have done anything differently. We did good press. We hired a PR company who did very well. People were talking about the game very briefly, but nobody wanted to buy it.
Yeah.
And so it was.
That's a broader.
The core problem. The game is good. The market campaign was good. Sales were terrible.
Yeah, that's a broader problem actually. Converting, if you've got the buzz, converting that into actual sales is a much more difficult element. I feel.
Yeah.
So it's hard to identify what goes wrong in that circumstance. Mm-hmm. Where you've got all the buzz, you've got positivity around your game, but you can't actually convert it into sales. That is tricky.
There we go. I found the one I was
Airscape: The Fall of Gravity is the game.
Okay, the one I was talking about, it's actually one I wanted to play if they could ever bother getting consoles. It was Sunset, which is a game in which you play. I think it's set in 1972, and you play it as a housekeeper.
All right.
And you're cleaning this bachelor pad of this wealthy guy, and you do the cleaning, but you also discover tapes and documents.
Oh no, I saw a video review of this. It sounded awesome.
Yeah, it looks really good.
It's not sort of not one of those games that's more of a narrative experience in the game, but it seems really interesting. Oh, I didn't know that was the game they were talking about.
Yeah, and they they spent $40,000 on PR and bits and pieces, and they only sold 4,000 copies. I'm just trying to find the rest of it.
But to me, that just sounds like their PR company was.
Oh, here we go. Right, okay. Yeah. So basically, they said they're shutting down. We don't have to take advice from anybody anymore, which is a bit of a dig at their PR thing. We were wrong. Fair enough. Everybody who we consulted with was wrong. I was like,
that just sounds like you've picked poor consultants.
Yeah. But yeah, it's they there's quite a few of these. Oh, our game hasn't sold. But yeah, it wasn't this one, which was the one which didn't do PR. I was wrong. That was another one. I can't remember which one it was.
I know, but I do remember the people. Yeah, because the review I actually I saw as a video review of it and was talking about the fact that the studio was shutting down. Talked about a few of their other games as well.
Yeah, they've been around for quite a long time.
Yeah, and they kind of known for making slightly more narrative driven games than kind of super gamey games.
Yeah, and it does look like an interesting.
Game, and kind of the fact that it's got from what I understand, it's got some emergent game mechanics in it where you're meant to clean. You get to pick what you want to clean, and that then has effects going forward in the game.
Yeah, I think it's like a cause and effect thing. But yeah, it looks good. But yeah, they kind of shut the whole thing down pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So
well, I guess they were kind of at a point where they were like, we know what we need to be doing. Like, if you've been making games for a while, You kind of go, all right, we know where we need to be at point X for us to survive. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. Which is a shame. But actually, no, I might buy Sunset as well because it looks interesting.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's still on sale, to be honest.
I imagine they'll keep it on Steam, you know.
Yeah.
What else we got to ask question-wise? But I do think Liam's sort of right. It does seem to become almost a marketing tool to write about how poor your game has done to get more sales for it.
But I was actually, just as an aside, I was surprised how small sales on Steam actually are. I was reading the other day, there's only 4 games which have sold over 1 million copies on Steam this year so far.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And
that's interesting.
And a couple of those are like GTA. GTA 5. Oh, what's that bloody shooter thing? The thing which never came to PlayStation. It's on Xbox. You don't know, do you? Counter-Strike.
Counter-Strike. Oh, yes. I was going to say Counter-Strike, but I didn't think that. Oh, no, they did come to Xbox. I remember, yeah.
Yeah, GTA 5, Counter-Strike, and then there was 2 other ones which have actually sold over 1 million copies.
Yeah.
And I thought Steam sales were a lot higher than that.
I think they're kind of... So, I think they are for smaller games, they're definitely comparatively high. Like, for an indie game, I reckon there's... although we don't know, but I imagine there's for an indie game, I would say selling 100,000 units is that's a lot.
Yes,
you sell 100,000 to 500,000, that's a lot. And you're not going to do that on not Steam, you know?
Yeah.
It's very difficult to do that on anything that isn't Steam.
In terms of revenue generated, you certainly, I would assume you get a lot more from Steam. But even so, I thought there was a bigger user base. I've got the list here now.
Okay.
GTA 5, City Skylines, Rocket League, well done them.
Yeah.
And then Ark Survival Evolved, Siege, which I have no idea with, and H1Z1. But they're all pretty big games, apart from Rocket League, which, Christ, that's done bloody well.
Yeah, it has. But I think Rocket League's done well just because it's a little bit unique and different. Yeah. But yeah, But although we are talking this year, so there's more stuff to come, and I would say that the problem as well, you've got to take into account that one of the big AAA games that came to PC in the form of Batman was fucked. Yeah. So yeah, that was never going to sell well.
Yeah. But I would have thought things like The Witcher 3 would have.
Yeah, The Witcher's surprising.
Would have cropped up. Apparently that sold 500,000, and Dying Light has sold 500,000 as well.
Yeah, I would think The Witcher more than Dying Light would have done rather well, because that is kind of a game that is really targeted to the PC audience. I mean, they've done console stuff because But on the other hand, that is exactly why they've done console stuff, because they said we don't sell enough copies on PC to make the game we want to make viable. So they by putting it onto console, it made making The Witcher 3 a viable prospect, which is interesting.
Yeah, it's small numbers for many others as well. But as you said, maybe you don't really need to sell hundreds of thousands of copies.
Yeah, depending on what it is. I mean, obviously, for a game like The Witcher 3, you want to be selling a lot because that's a huge expensive world. But for smaller titles, and this is not to be just to pick a recent example, but something like Volume, I can't imagine Mike Biffle needs to sell a huge number of copies to break even on it.
No.
I'd imagine he obviously wants to, because it funds his next game. But I'd imagine the development costs for not all, but quite a lot of indie games are reasonably low.
Yeah.
So you don't have to make as much capital back because you've got a smaller team working on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anyway, next question.
The other question we only had 2, I believe, this week. The other question we had was from Joannis, in fact, who would like to know what are the first steps for someone who would like to set up their own podcast.
You should answer that.
Yeah, well, I would say get good audio gear, but that's
don't need that
because that's because I'm very picky. You don't need that. What you need.
It depends on what you want from a podcast as well. If you want to just people to hear stuff that you've got to say, then whatever's fine. But if you want to take it to a level where people will take it seriously as a podcast, then good audio equipment is probably gonna
100%, 100%, yeah. But it depends. So I would say make sure you are reasonably organised, because the first episodes of this podcast are actually pretty bad because it just wasn't well organised. Like they're not. The early stuff is not good because we did not have the process down for making it. Even though I'd done stuff in the past, it was with less people, and it was kind of normally with Davs, who was like physically with me. Doing it over Skype is a harder process than doing it in person, in my opinion. But like seriously, if you want to do it in person, if you've got a phone, record the first 5 episodes on your phone. Just stick phones in the middle. Get all your phone. Get everyone who want you on the podcast phone, assuming you are in one physical place. Like, get everyone's phones, stick them in the middle of the table, hit record on them, and just work out which of them sounds the best and use that, because it's going to be fine. Like, realistically, as long as you haven't got people constantly talking over each other.
Yeah,
it's
like technology is now to the point where actually, like, a phone is almost as good as like a mic for your first outings.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, we literally record the podcast from Res was done on my iPhone, and it was on my iPhone in the middle of the table, and that was literally it. And I think Teff sent a version of the audio that was recording like his slightly better phone than mine, because I think he's got a newer Android phone or something. But yeah, we just recorded, and that was it. That's all. That's that, and that was in a very noisy room, and the audio quality was not amazing, but you could hear what we were saying, and that's kind of the key point. There are people who are going to be put off if it doesn't sound great, but my main thing personally, actually, is what you should really try and cut down on is just lots of background hiss. Like, if there's not a lot of background hiss, it's probably fine. People will get annoyed if there's a lot of like background hiss or audio artifacts, which all you need to do to avoid that is record it somewhere quiet where there's no fans, basically. If you do that, you're probably going to be fine. And most of the time, that's really it. Like, if you had a little bit of money to spend, maybe get something like a Zoom or something like that. But genuinely, I would say record a few episodes on your phone, and then listen back to them and see if you want to release them, and see what works and what doesn't. See what's like, just have a play and see what's good and what's bad, because that's the only way you're going to learn. Like, that's really it. But he says he's already got a crew of people that he wants to work with. So if you've got that, just record some episodes. Send them to some friends. Probably don't send them to me because I don't speak Polish. But like, send them to people who do speak Polish. I imagine you know lots of people who speak Polish being Polish. But for anyone, like, just send them to a bunch of your friends and see what they think. See what they think is good and what they think is bad. And that's literally it. Like, just send it to people who you feel will give you honest feedback on it. That's all you need to do. And then you can start getting into spending money if you enjoy it and you want to go forward. It's like my brother's podcast. That's literally what he did. Is his stuff, his early stuff is really sketchy. And then he borrowed some equipment I didn't need, and then he kind of built it forwards. And like, he now, because he not anymore, but he was doing his like in person with a bunch of people. He was setting up with a camera to record it, and like with a proper lighting rig that he got off eBay quite cheaply. Like, he made, like, eBay is good if you want stuff like that. If you want kind of equipment as well, look on eBay, because there's secondhand stuff that'll do you probably. Like, he got stuff on eBay that was like 30 quid for 2 big light boxes that lit the room well and made it much easier to see on video if you were going that way. But yeah, literally just sit down, record it, and try and make every episode slightly better than the one before, and that's all you can ever do. That's all you can ever aim for, is to make the next episode slightly better than the previous one. If you can do that, you're golden, really. Like, and I could sit down and give you a bunch of technical advice about, like, oh, I use Cubase to edit this. But you don't have to. You can use whatever you want. Like, go and get Reaper. There's a bit of software called Reaper that I've actually got on my new laptop, and that is free for 60 days or something. And then it's really cheap to buy it permanently. Or if you've got a Mac, like GarageBand is, I think you can get it free or something. I can't remember that, but even if not, I was looking the other day.
Yeah, GarageBand comes free on a Mac.
Yeah, but it's not free on mine. I'm confused by it. I don't know.
Good.
But I think even if you have to buy it, I looked at it on the App Store and it's like 12 quid or something, ludicrously cheap. Like, it's not a lot of money to spend. And there are the audio editing tools, you can get something you can cut audio in. That's not a problem. Worst case scenario, you can use Audacity. It's not great, but you can use it. Like, Audacity is completely freeware. But there's stuff out there that you can do all of it in. The thing you need to do is literally just go and do it. The podcast I did at the end of last year, the ones that were like the Year Recording To podcasts that I did, I made up a format about 2 hours before I did the first one. And then I did them. And then they turned out reasonably well, in my opinion, and I'm going to do them again this year. And I'm going to try and make them better this year than they were last year. But that's all I did. I went and did the thing I wanted to do. The reason I do the wrestling podcast I do, like, we don't do it very regularly, but like literally I was on the bus to a friend's house and I started the blog post. I wrote the first blog post for that literally on a bus somewhere else because it was right on the other side of the town. It was like an hour bus journey. I wrote a 500, 600 word blog post about predictions for last year's Money in the Bank or something. And that was the first thing that ever went up on that brand. And I registered a Twitter account and I did all this from my phone. If I can do that in an hour's bus journey on my phone, you have no excuse for not doing this kind of thing. So just go and do it. That's literally it. Go and do it. That's how TSA started. People wanted to do a thing, so they did a thing. And now it's like, it's a stable, steady community that like is respected by people.
Alternatively, if you want to do a podcast and there's one that you want to be on, just get drunk and go to it.
Yeah, that's how Kev worked it.
Yeah.
That's how Kev did it.
Yeah.
Do you want a fact, Kev, because you're king of facts?
Oh yeah, go on.
I've just looked up on Steam Spy, which tells you how many copies of the game has been sold.
Mm-hmm.
Guess how many volumes sold?
How many?
I'm gonna guess at 106,000 copies.
Kris?
Oh, I would say maybe like it's been out a little while, maybe like 80,000 copies.
According to Steam Spy, Volume has sold 4,496 copies.
That's interesting.
Significantly less than 106,000.
Yeah, that's
more than 100,000 less, in fact.
Yes. Just
be interesting.
I don't know anyone who's played it actually. You guys played it?
Thomas with Alone has sold 809,000 copies.
Okay.
So yeah, Volume's not doing.
But that was a slow burner too, so maybe Volume will be.
That's true, yeah. But that's.
It's a difficult second album, though, isn't it?
That's true.
Right.
Hopefully it's sold. Go. Sorry.
No. I was going to end.
I was just going to say, hopefully it sold more on PlayStation.
Yeah. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for this week's edition of the podcast. We will be back, as always, next week with a brand new thing. And the week after that, it's the EGX special. So Kev and Lewis definitely won't be here.
That's true.
Because they're not going to EGX. As always, you can
Neither
get the
am I.
Neither are you. Well, you might come for one night and get drunk, but you might not. We are. If you'd like to get previous episodes of the podcast, you can go to TheSixthAxis.com. You can go to Stitcher. You can go to YouTube. You can go to iTunes. You can go to wherever you get podcasts from. All that kind of jazz. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can email us at podcast@TheSixthAxis.com or tweet us at TSA Podcast. If you'd like to get in touch with me personally, you can get me on Twitter as HalPro. You can get Kev as KevinTron400, and you can get Tuffcub as Tuffcub. That's TUFF Cub. But that is going to do it for this week's slightly shorter than normal episode of the podcast. But for now, say goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
Oh, I was going to do that.
Oh.
Bye.
Goodbye.
The Sixth Axis Podcast.